Hello, everyone. Welcome to the kickoff session of Day 3 of the Advanced SEO Summit, brought to you by Neil Patel. I'm Vasil. I'm one of the co-hosts with Clayton Wood, who was just here in the previous session, bringing you guys up to speed what to expect from today's final day. And I'm super excited to have Eric here with me. If you're here excited to see Eric, say hi in the chat, and also let us know if you can hear us loud and clear. Eric, how's it going today?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. You're joining us from LA right now, but then you're traveling to San Francisco, right?
I am. Just got back from Boston, and then off to SF basically after this. So
yeah, it's a busy couple of months for you. And also excited to have you on board in London and Amsterdam in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate that, and looking forward to it.
Awesome. And for all of you guys who don't know who Eric is a CEO at Single Grain, which is a digital marketing agency that works with Fortune 500 brands such as Salesforce, Yahoo. Recently, Eric brought Uber on board, so he's working with really credible brands in Silicon Valley and all over the world. He's also a great guy, always in the mindset to help other founders. I learned quite a few things from him through several meetings that we had, and some of you might also know him as Neil's partner in crime when it comes to Marketing School podcast, which he's will be sharing today, all of the key lessons, how to drive traffic, organic search traffic with podcasting. And besides that, I don't know how he does it all, but he also owns another marketing podcast which called Growth Everywhere, where he interviewed some of the best marketers and entrepreneurs such as Neil, Noah Kagan, who else, Ramit Sethi, and many others.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, I'm just gonna hand it off to you, Eric. Go ahead and take it away.
Sure. So thanks for that awesome introduction. And what we're going to talk about today is how you can win at podcasting. And then we're also going to show you how you can actually win when it comes to organic search with podcasting, which we started to see kind of the side benefit of that. But, definitely we're going to talk about kind of the how-to with podcasts first, and then the SEO portion afterwards. And feel free to keep asking questions as we run through this. I speak really fast already. So ask questions, we're going to help address them afterwards. And I believe this presentation, when I run through it, should be 35 minutes or so. So, if not, I'll just talk a little faster. So first and foremost, a little introduction on myself, in addition to Vasil's introduction. So I run Single Grain, like you mentioned, and I also have a marketing school with Neil Patel, which I'll share some metrics around. We started that one in August of 2016. And then also I have one more called Growth Everywhere. And I've been doing that one for about 3.5 years. And that actually led to doing marketing school. So, Vasil mentioned some great guests on there. We've had some awesome people, such as the Marketo co-founders, founders of EchoSign, and even the guy that invented this little stripe that you have on the back of your card. That guy's also on as well. So that's enough about me. I want to get into the meat of the talk. So when it comes to podcast listening, it's interesting because the people that are listening to podcasts right now, like whenever I hear people are looking for, okay, Eric, what's like a recommendation? What should I be listening to? These are all learners. These are all kind of people that have an entrepreneurial spirit. And you can also call them kind of the early or earlier adopters, not so much early, but because podcasting has been around for a while. But you can see in 2008, only 9% of people actually, of total population of percent people listening to podcasts was only 9%, right? And then, but you can see when it goes up to 2016, it's at 21%. So it's growing. It's growing steadily, and that's a good thing. Excuse me, I'm getting a little sick. But anyway, this other stat right here shows that about 1/3 of Americans now say that they've listened to a podcast, which is huge, right? It's being integrated into cars as well. Like you have your Bluetooth connection. The fact that you can take your phone with you and just learn things while you're at the gym or when you're out there driving, when you have downtime, like, my God, that's such a hack, right? To be able to take other people's secrets for free and then just go implement them, right? So that's the great part about it. And then total number of Libsyn download requests increases. So Libsyn is I think they are the largest podcast host out there. You can see the number of podcast download requests on Libsyn in 2015 was 3.3 billion, okay, with a B. So it's huge. It's getting bigger and bigger. And the growth rate it seems to be accelerating beyond kind of even faster than what you saw from the 17 to 21% year over year increase. So what does podcasting actually do for you, right? So I often thought about this. Is it to generate leads? Is it for organic traffic, which we didn't expect? What can you expect from podcasting? And for those of you that are actually listening to or the fact that you're on this advanced summit, it means that SEO is important to you, which means content's also important to you. But at the same time, if you're doing content marketing, you have to figure out how to diversify, right? And at the same time, using a diversification method, you can actually boost organic traffic more. So this was pretty straightforward. I mean, literally, I just closed a deal from a guy that listened to one of my podcasts. This was about like 45 minutes ago. And so you can definitely get customers, right? If you have a service-based business, you have the chance to bring people in because people are listening to you. They start to understand you as a person, just like watching videos as well, right? It's great for recruiting too. Anybody that listens to my podcast and reaches out and they're looking for a job with Single Grain, they automatically get like priority because these types of people are trying to learn, right? So it's great for recruiting. The people that I brought through the podcast are some of the best people I've ever hired, like bar none. Speaking of opportunities too, this I'll just mention, I'm going to be speaking at the Growth Marketing Conference at a couple of them, right? But I've also spoken at, like, for example, I spoke in Brazil twice last year and all the other speaking events. It's because of the podcast. Like last minute, I ended up in Arizona, for example, at a conference where Steve Wozniak was headlining, right? So you get all these other opportunities and you get to meet people as well. You meet people for coffee. It's just, the fact that you're able to connect with people, not just through text, but through like voice, and then you have video as well, it's really powerful. Free mentorship too. This is like the selfish portion where if you're doing an interview type of show, you get free mentorship from people. And I've certainly learned a lot. And this is the only chance where you don't have to pay people that are really successful. You can speak to them for 30 to 45 minutes or so, and you get so much gold, right? And there's partnerships too. And then you get introductions to great people like I mentioned. So I'm going to get into some numbers right here. So this is growth everywhere. Wow, I'm really losing my voice. Anyway, so growth everywhere. 797,000 downloads over the last 3.5 years. It's not bad, right? And I'm going to show you like what the struggle was to actually get to that point. But even though it's 800K over 3.5 years, you're like, oh, that's not as impressive versus like organic traffic where you're driving, hundreds of thousands or millions of visits a month. Just stick with me for a little bit. You'll see why it is worth it. And if you look at marketing school right here, this shows why it is kind of worth it, right? Because we started in August of 2016, and to date so far we have 3.3 million downloads in 8 months, right? So we're just our growth is continuing to get better and better, and we're running different kinds of promotions now, which I'll talk about in a little bit too. But you see, like everything adds up, right? Without this, we wouldn't have gotten to this. Because I wouldn't have known the process. I wouldn't have known how to like set everything up. It's just like setting up content marketing, right? You hire the writers, you have your writer's checklist, your writer's guidelines, all this different stuff. It's the same concept here. If I didn't prove that this worked first, Neil and I would have never been able to do this because we would have had nothing to build off of, right? Podcasting is still very new, which is why I think it's very important for people to get started. If you have something unique to say, like go out there and say it, right? And I'll talk about how Neil and I kind of differentiated from other people. You just need to have a little spin on it to to move forward. So this is growth everywhere in the early days, right? So it wasn't all sunshine and flowers, and basically a year into it, I was only getting 30 downloads a day. Like I was spending 6 hours a week. So I'd do the interview, I'd write the show notes, I'd edit everything, I put everything together, upload it, right? It took me 6 hours every single week. So that's 24 hours a month where I was doing all the work because I wanted to figure out the process first before handing it off. But I did it for the whole year, right? And usually after 12 months, even with content marketing, if you're only getting 30 visits a month, like throw in the towel, you're done, right? But I decided to keep going because of the feedback I was getting from people. And oftentimes, even with content marketing, like you're not going to get much traffic initially, but if you're getting unsolicited feedback from people saying like, hey, like your stuff's actually really good, then you might actually really have something. So that's what kept me going. So the numbers weren't clear. The numbers clearly weren't in my favor. So why did I bother to keep going? So I just talked about this a second ago. Like for marketing school, we've had people reach out and say, hey, like I don't have a college degree, but I just got my first marketing job, and it's because of marketing school. And that to us, it's like, I remember I interviewed Neil's crazy egg partner, Heaton Shaw, and I asked him, I was like, why do you help people so much? And he was like, well, honestly, it feels like a drug. And like, now I know what he means. When you get all these emails from people, right? Like, yeah, sure, growing the podcast channels is great, revenue is great, all this kind of stuff, right? But when you get these responses from people where they write thoughtful emails to you, where it's like, oh, our business had 0 in revenue and we just did 200K because of your podcast, like that's what keeps us going. That is the drug that keeps us moving, right? Because here's the thing. Reality eventually catches up. If you know that you're doing the right thing, if you're getting these responses from people, you keep doing it, right? If you look at Elon Musk, reality eventually catches up. He tried to interview at Netscape, ended up walking out because he was too nervous, but reality catches up because he works so damn hard, right? So that's an extreme example, though. I'm not saying you need to work as hard as Elon Musk. So tip number 1 to winning with podcasts, it's the same thing as content marketing. You have to be consistent, but that doesn't mean you can suck. Right. So for Growth Everywhere, it was 1 podcast per week. Kept doing it. First year, for first couple months in, 9 downloads a day. A year in, 30 downloads a day. 2 years in, 54 downloads a day. And then you go 1 more year after that. It's like, okay, we hit like a high point of like 10,000 to 15,000 in a day on a record day. So you have to make sure that here's the thing, like with marketing, a lot of you read different marketing blogs and you start to realize, like, if you're reading Inbound, you're reading Growth Hackers, you're seeing the same stuff pop up over and over and over. So how do you differentiate yourself, right? For Neil, it's just all long form content. He's really consistent with it. Just, I think it's multiple times per week. But you have to find something interesting, right? For Growth Everywhere, it's like, for us, we talk. Well, I interview people and I get their story, and that's always going to be interesting to people, and it's really evergreen, right? Now for marketing school, it's like, how do we maintain that quality? Well, for Neil and I, we both go through a QA process where it's like, okay, well, here's, we're basically listing out a bunch of titles people are giving us titles to, and you guys are welcome to send us, titles or topics that you think are good. And then Neil and I will both vote, and anything that gets a yes for both of us, we consider it quality, and that actually goes live. So that's how we kind of decide on it. And then also we look at our analytics too. So we'll look at past posts that have done well for Neil, past posts that have done well for me, past content that's done well. So, that's how we're really thoughtful about the content that we're putting out, and we want to make sure that it's actually good. And tip number 2, so it is quality. So I guess we kind of talked about it, right? Consistent quality podcast. So for those of you that listen to podcasts, I just want you to actually drop some in the chat right now. What podcast do you actually listen to? So I just put one right here. One of my favorites is the Tim Ferriss Show, because he has really dynamic people that you often don't hear from. So the Tim Ferriss Show is awesome. The Smart Passive Income Show from Pat Flynn, and just go ahead and keep listening to him in. I'm really interested to see like some podcasts that I haven't seen before. We Study Billionaires. I love that podcast. It's it's really good in terms of the types of guests that they bring on, and they also review books too. And I'm always interested in adding more books to my repertoire. So these things I like because I'm always interested in learning, and I'm always interested in perspectives that I really. When Tim Ferriss brings on someone that I've never heard of, like acro yoga, for example, I don't know, right? I get different perspectives, and that helps me kind of move forward. And that's my hack. And then, of course, marketing school and Growth Everywhere. So number 3 is learning from the best, right? So, when I think about some of the best, well, I'm really losing my voice. When I think about some of the best podcasts out there, I think about Smart Passive Income. So Pat Flynn, he's been doing it for a very long time. I think since 2008. You have John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. He's been doing it since 2012. And every Tuesday, he'll record without fail. He'll record 7 episodes. He'll batch them all together. He'll just drain himself. So if you want to get started with podcasts, I recommend checking out the Pat Flynn podcast tutorial. You can just Google that. Same thing with the John Lee Dumas podcast tutorial. Check those 2 out. If you need to go even further, I do recommend buying the John Lee Dumas course on podcasting. His community is really strong, and everybody helps each other out. So it's awesome. So that's a little bit on it. So in order to kind of get SEO traffic from podcasts, you have to learn how to set up podcasts first, which is why I'm going through this. So tip number 4, you have to put your own unique spin on it. So example is marketing school, right? we do daily marketing podcasts every single day, right? Like without fail, if you open up your iTunes right now, you open up your Apple Podcasts or your Stitcher, we have one every single day. And we make sure that we're just on track. Like Neil will call me out sometimes, I'll call him out sometimes. Like even though he travels, I'm traveling too. Like we find a way to make it work. Like for two people, you have to stay committed. And without a shadow of a doubt, given his work ethic, as long as we both find interest in it, we're just going to continue to do it. And then we have two hosts. It's not just one. Having one person do a daily marketing podcast, like that might be feasible, but having two people that are, that have busier schedules, that's really difficult, right? And you have Neil's unique perspective. Everybody knows Neil right here, right? And it's also myself, given my different kind of perspective around marketing, because I've worked at a technology startup before. I've done things differently. Whereas, he started multiple things, right? I'm more known for kind of, helping, save a stagnant company or save kind of a failing company, right? That's kind of where my perspective comes in. But both marketing backgrounds, but kind of different stories. And I think that lends two unique perspectives. And we don't always agree on everything too, which is a good thing. Like sometimes he'll cut me off, sometimes I'll cut him off too. And we'll agree to disagree, but it's perfectly fine because it's two unique personalities. So think about what your unique spin is on it. There's a lot of interview podcasts out there right now, right? So with Growth Everywhere, it is an interview podcast, but I do talk a little more about marketing in addition to entrepreneurship, right? So that's my little unique spin on it. Tip number 5, you want to make sure that you are promoting as much as you can. Seems like a very duh statement given the fact that you guys are on an SEO kind of content marketing kind of summit, but you have to promote. Ways to promote, right? Simple way, interview guests and ask them to share. And one hack that Nathan Ladka from another podcast called The Top, he'll like a couple months in, he'll email people and say, hey, like your podcast is doing really well right now. Here are some links to share it, right? So it gives people kind of an ego boost to help share it like, one more time. So he'll make a kind of a follow-up sequence for that. Share in social media too. This seems really basic, but people forget about it. If you use a tool like Meet Edgar and you have evergreen podcasts like Growth Everywhere, for example, just have Edgar kind of schedule things over and over and over in perpetuity, so you don't have to keep rescheduling it, right? Because your content's evergreen, and not everybody's going to see all your content. You have to make sure that you're setting it in a queue where it's going to continually surface up. Also, you have to make sure that you hit your email list as well. So both Neil and I mean, we basically have kind of at least for me, I have an RSS to email sequence that's going to hit my email list every Sunday. And Neil's actually going to write like a custom email. That's what he does every Sunday. Hit your email list. I mean, if you have a couple thousand people on it, like hit them. These are the people that actually like you, right? And then you can also use paid advertising too, which Russell Brunson does really well, which I'll show you in a second. I'll kind of describe what he's doing. And then if you use something like Libsyn, it helps you auto post to YouTube, SoundCloud, LinkedIn as well, Facebook. Every new episode will auto post, which is gonna save you a lot of time. And I can tell you, it's helped grow our YouTube channel. I think it's small right now, but it's continuing to grow. I think we're adding like 10 to 20 subscribers a day. And I just know like when we hit 10,000 subscribers, it's gonna go. We're talking hockey stick kind of growth. Because everybody I've talked to, once you get to about 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, getting from 10,000 to 100,000 is a lot easier. Tip number 5, always try to get more ratings, reviews, and subscribe. So this is something we ask for like in a call to action at the end of the podcast. It helps a lot. It helps us, push up. Right now, like we're running a promotion for marketing school right now, and it's helping a lot. We're getting a lot more, subscribes, reviews, and ratings, and our downloads are going up. Number 6, I think we kind of talked about this a little earlier, but I'll repeat it again. Put your own creative spin on it, right? So right here, this is Russell Brunson's. This is his marketing in your car, his podcast. This is his MP3 stick. So he runs paid traffic to this, and he is profitable on this traffic, right? So it costs him $15 to get an acquisition, which is somebody kind of opting in for this this MP3 player, and he makes $32. So $15 in. $15 spent, and he makes $32, right? And that's great. Usually you're just trying to break even when you're running kind of paid advertising to a funnel. He's actually making money on it. And for each person that downloads or buys the pays for the shipping for the marketing MP3 player, 5 people will subscribe to his podcast. So he's growing his podcast. He's getting people into his funnel, and on the back end, this is not even considering the back end where he can make like a lot more money. Doing something like this is really smart. And then Neil Neil and I right now, we're trying to figure something out around this. So if you know anybody in this space, or you can do something like this, feel free to email me directly. It's eric@singlegrain.com. We're always trying to, especially the fact that we have 2 podcasts, Growth Everywhere and Marketing School, we can do this too. So, you can do creative stuff like this. Just look at what other people are doing and figure out like how you can build a funnel for yourself for the long term. So for us at Marketing School, what we're doing is we're getting companies to give away free copies of their software and blast their email list in exchange for mentions on our podcast. So if you want to get in front of 570,000 people, 570,000 downloads a month, and if you have a really cool P point, you have a decent sized email list, email me as well, and we can work something out. We're always trying to mention cool people. Okay, so you've gotten this far already, and you're lucky because I still kind of have my voice a little bit. So here's how you actually win at SEO with podcasts. So we created a site called marketingschool.io, and this is what it looks like. Total piece of crap, right? So we just made a WordPress site, and we said, okay, I just need to find a plugin that will auto post from our RSS feed from the podcast. And we have people that do our show notes. So we're just going to auto post all the show notes. It's going to all be here. It's going to auto post. That's it. We haven't built any links to this. We have our little smart passive player right here. This is it. This is the experience. And this graphic right here, this was like the original graphic we used for the podcast. So it does look pretty poverty, but it's okay. So, we started this in August, right? I mentioned, and you can see no links, just pure content. And it continues to move up and to the right. It's, getting close to about 4,000 or so, which is not bad. And you might think, be thinking, well, 4,000, like that's okay. But like, this is still early days. Like, it's going to grow exponentially once we get to 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 or so. And the other thing is we can also repurpose a lot of this content. And a lot of the show notes that you see, we can expand on all of it, right? So we can take it, a couple steps further if we want to invest on it. But right now, this is table stakes. I suggest setting up a WordPress blog, setting up hosting through WP Engine or something like that, and just getting this thing going. Because if you have a podcast, you should be posting it to YouTube. You should be posting it to SoundCloud. You should have a blog that auto posts so you can get more SEO traffic, right? These are all wins, and I can retarget these people down the road too to buy whatever down the road. So it just makes sense to have something like this, right? So what you want to do is you want to have someone write your show notes and then have your podcast host auto publish your feed to a WordPress blog and just watch it grow. For show notes, there's somebody called the Show Notes Guy. You can Google that. He does a lot of show notes, and then for us, it's all about leveraging your time, right? If you're starting out, yes, write your own show notes. But if you have a business that's thriving, it's running, spend some of that money. Spend money on show notes. We spend like $400 a month, get that all stuff done. That gets the editing done, the show notes done, and it'll auto post. So I would basically just record, and then these things go live. So one last thing you probably want to take a screenshot of here is I just talked about repurposing a little later, right? You have to figure out how you can repurpose your content over time to maximize its value. Because when you buy a car, you're trying to drive it to maximum value, right? You don't want to just like drive it a little bit and that's it, and then you just waste a ton of money. How do you maximize the mileage on your content? You want to use something like this. Take a screenshot of this, take out your mobile phone, and just figure out, use this workflow to continue to move down, to continue to repurpose stuff. Because it just makes sense. You spend $100, $200, $300. How do you maximize it? Because you're gonna spend less, but you're gonna get the maximum value from it. So I think we spent about 30 minutes or so, 28 minutes. I talked extra fast, but yeah, in terms of resources, like if you want to reach out to me, like how to set all this stuff up, just email me. It's eric@singlegrain.com. And then if you're low on resources, we're always happy to tap into our Rolodex, and just go to that link, singlegrain.com/marketing-chat, and open it up for questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric. It was great. Thank you for guiding us through the whole process. I'm sure we got a lot of questions from the audience related to the presentation, and we do have some general marketing questions.
Sure. And
we have plenty of time. So why don't we go ahead and start with the most upvoted ones. Now you can see the chat as well. A lot of people. Yeah, there are some podcasts when you were asking people to submit, but there's tons of chat going on. I'm glad that we have a very engaged community here. So let's dive into Q&A. Here's the most upvoted question from Diana. How to build the list of subscribers from zero?
The list of subscribers, is that the email list? Is that what is that?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's an email list. And maybe we can also specify. Maybe we'll start from completely if you have zero list, and maybe we can also talk about how you can build a list of subscribers using podcasting specifically.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what we do for our podcast in terms of building a list. So what we've been doing, I just mentioned that software giveaway a second ago, and we say, hey, if you want access to the software, leave a rating, review, or subscribe, and then text marketing school, that's one word, to 33444, and that's a lead digits code that we use, and their email will be in there, and then we just give away software. So they're incentivized to get 1 year of Ahrefs, for example, or 1 year of SEMrush, right? And then they just give us their info. And we started out about like a couple weeks ago, and we're getting 15 to 20 subscribers a day from it, and which is not bad. So that's one way to go about it. And also at the same time, you can also put like for marketingschool.io, you can put like a pop-up on the site, or like using subo.com or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm assuming those pop-ups would be also a great way to build your email list in general, to just answer it from a more general perspective. And for all of you guys who actually attended Growth Hacking Secrets for 2017, our previous virtual summit, Neil gave an opening keynote. We talked in details about his method of collecting emails, how he does it, how he collects 5,000 emails almost a day, which is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. So some of you have access to it. So let's see, let's move to the next one. What is the best way to build an email? Okay, so this one was answered already.
Someone's asking this. I see some comments here. People are saying like the slides were too small or whatever. So if you guys want the slides, I'll share them with Vasil, and then he can decide how to distribute.
Yeah, we'll definitely take care of that. And you guys also, some of you, you can also zoom in the screen. And after this presentation is over, you'll be able to review it on demand until the end of the day.
Actually, I'll tell you guys what. I'm going to drop the Dropbox link in chat. I just did it right now. So it says slides, and you guys have access.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric. And let's see. Here's the question from Adrian. The benefits of SEO are sometimes hard to explain to clients or bosses because SEO is so complex and often doesn't have instant results. What are some common misconceptions about SEO you see when talking to clients or peers? How do you address them?
Yeah, so here's a really good one. We met with a pretty big university yesterday. So that was when I was in Boston. And to quantify the effects of SEO, people understand pay-per-click, right? So you pay a certain amount, you multiply it by how much it costs per click is, your conversion rate, and then traffic, and then you kind of get like a result, right? So basically what we tell them is like, okay, let's look at the CPC, let's look at the average kind of click-through rate for a top 3 position, and then we'll multiply it by your conversion rate, right? And we can see, okay, here's how much you would be spending on AdWords if you were driving traffic to this keyword. Now, you're ranking top 10 for this right now. Here's how much this keyword is worth to you at the moment. Here's how much revenue you're driving from that keyword. And if we get you into a top 3 position, here's how much revenue you're going to be making from it, right? This could be a 20x, 30x increase, right? Then like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, what you have to say, like when you're trying to sell SEO or any kind of services, it's just, if you put in X, you're going to get Y. And a lot of agencies fail at doing that, which I don't understand why. It's just, if they're spending money from you, they need to know that they're making money. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen a presentation specifically how to explain the ROI on search engine optimization or how to calculate it. Maybe a way of doing that.
Yeah, that'd be a great one.
Yeah, we should do it at the next summit. All right, so let's see. Here's the question from Bree. Should each episode of a podcast have some transcribed content in order to boost organic traffic?
Yeah, totally. So you can use rev.com, that's rev.com. And like we're paying $5 to $10 per growth, or maybe it's like $25 because growth everywhere is longer. So you're paying $1 per minute, right? For marketing school, it's $5 to $10 because it's 5 to 10 minutes. I definitely recommend that. It helps a lot. For us, like we're just doing the show notes right now. And then what we're going to do also, we actually haven't started transcribing the marketing school ones, which we probably should. So that's a good idea that I'll bring up with Neil. Like we'll spend the money on it. And you can use Zapier to kind of automate that process too, just to make it even easier.
I'm curious, as kind of a short follow-up question on it. when you add in all of the resources as a links as a part of the show notes, does it affect your rankings in any case? Is it more helpful? Obviously, it's helpful for the guest, but is it helpful for you? Does it help you to increase your?
I think it helps because like if you're writing an algorithm right for Google and you're looking at multiple signals, it does make sense to have, you're having links linking out to other sites. It's just another signal to add to the list. I don't think it's going to make like a major impact, but it's just one more thing to look at if you have an algorithm running. I think it's logical, right?
Gotcha, makes sense. All right, so let's see, how much SEO impact do social media links have compared to normal backlinks? If you focus exclusively on posting content to social media for your link building strategy, is that going to get you anywhere?
So I'll answer the first part. I probably need to repeat on the second part, but social links, I think it's, people say it's no follow, doesn't add a lot of value, but I think it does add value to it is like another signal, right? Even if it's no follow or whatever, it is another signal. What I will say is this is interesting. So for one of the sites that I have, it was just dead. Like, we're producing content for it. We had some links going to it, but for whatever reason, like traffic wasn't going up. Like we bought another site, we redirected it. It's like, why is this traffic not going up? So what we did after was we started to spend $5 a day driving traffic from Facebook to the site. So you can consider this a social link, right? And from then our traffic skyrocketed. It just like went up. I think it went up from probably increased like 10 or 15 fold. So I think that signal matters because I've tried to do it on other smaller sites before too. You start to drive some Facebook traffic towards it, and all of a sudden organic goes up. And like I've heard that from other people too in the SEO space. So I do recommend even doing like $1 a day to it. It is a positive signal.
How long have you been doing it until you start seeing the results?
That was like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Pretty good. Definitely worth it. And then the second part of the question was, if you focus exclusively on posting content on social media for your link building strategy, is it going to get you anywhere? Not sure if I understand the question, but Eric, do you understand?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I'm assuming if you add I think, I don't understand. Rebecca, feel free to clarify it in the chat while we addressing the next question. What are the essential steps to creating a podcast? So this is a podcast related question. Maybe just 5 or 3 to 5 things that you need to have in place before you decide, okay, I'm going to commit to a podcast.
The steps before preparing, is it for the 5 steps of building a great podcast, or is it kind of pre-planning?
What are essential steps to creating a podcast? I think it's pre-planning and also having it in place.
Yeah.
But feel free to answer it as you wish.
Yeah, honestly, I think that the best way to do this, Pat Flynn's got a really good YouTube video on like how to set up a podcast. It's a series of videos, right? So the tools that he uses, how he preps for it, software he uses, all this other stuff that's in there, you get the toolkit to get started with it. I recommend watching that. You're probably going to spend an hour to 2 hours on it. And then beyond that, I would say, again, download these slides and figure out what kind of unique spin can you put on. And here's the thing. It's going to take you a long time to succeed. You can see, like, I slogged through it like hard, right? I actually, I met with I mentioned Zapier a little bit earlier. Like I met with the CEO a couple weeks ago, and then we were talking about the early days of growth everywhere. He's like, why would you keep going like a year, 2 years into it? And you just have to know that if you're getting good feedback from people, you just keep going. That's like anything, right? Most people just give up too early. And yeah, I just knew that it was the right thing to do, and that's it.
You know what's funny? When I think we also had that conversation about a week ago. I was doing webinars for 3 or 4 years right now, and I wasn't even getting any feedback for the first year. So I don't even know how I lasted for the whole year.
Why did you keep going? If you got no feedback, nothing, why did you keep going?
It was actually a learning experience for me because my background was originally more in social media, events planning, and I really wanted to learn marketing. So in fact, when I was moderating sessions, I wasn't even understanding everything that speakers were talking about. And I would ask some very generic questions in the end, and they probably hated me because they're like, really, you're asking that? But eventually, just by doing it over and over, I think I learned definitely fundamentals of marketing. And then eventually, when I got better, we start getting some better feedback.
That's great.
Yeah, so definitely persistence help when it comes to anything. So let's see, what search engine optimization best practices would you recommend in order to increase subscribers to podcasts? Maybe in addition to the ones that you mentioned, maybe something that you guys have on the roadmap with Neil?
Yeah, so the transcription somebody brought earlier, that's something we should definitely be doing. And then also I mentioned earlier, kind of expanding on the topics that do well. So if we go into our analytics and we see some posts are standing out versus the rest, we should definitely expand on those, right? And then just whenever we upgrade posts, for example, if you Google the keyword like online marketing companies right now, I think Single Grain is probably top 5 or top 7 for that. And all we did was upgrade that post because we saw that it did well and it's driving much more traffic now. So just look at what does well and upgrade it. That works well for SEO. Link building, like we're on the SEO summit, right? Let's not forget about link building for the love of God. And I'm gonna keep talking here. But I'm gonna grab my Postmates really quick. Actually, ask me the next question, Vasil.
Okay, yeah, while Eric is grabbing it also, I also want to remind everyone that this recording is available to you until the end of the day. Next session, next up, okay, Eric is back, perfect, we got his line. So all set here, and we can move into the next question. With Lily, for solopreneurs, where time is very limited, how do we determine the most effective places to devote our time and attention?
Yeah.
Content marketing versus podcast, and yeah, which is better for the time-strapped entrepreneur?
Yeah, great question. I think that's something we all struggle with. So first and foremost, I recommend Googling the Eisenhower Matrix. So I'm going to put that into chat right now, the Eisenhower Matrix. And then also read the book Essentialism. That's by, I forgot who it's by, Mark McCowan or something like that. But check out those two. It's all about prioritization at the end of the day. And also, I think the same thing with business, right? A lot of people try to start different businesses all the time. And it's like, because we have the shiny object syndrome, right? We're entrepreneurs, we have ideas, we're creative. But you have to look at like what's actually working well for you right now. So this is something I struggle with, and I still struggle with today. It's like, yes, the agency, it does really well, and it is the breadwinner, right? And I should be focusing more of my time on that because it's going really well. So I should just continue to do that versus trying to do all these other shiny things on the side. And I think you need to audit like what's going really well for you at the moment. Focus all your energy on that. And once you feel like you've maxed it out and there's diminishing returns on it, then start to hit the other areas. The constant theme that I hear over and over, it's like Steve Jobs, right? Focus, right? Everybody says like the main thing. I was actually at an entrepreneurs organization event a couple weeks ago. One guy was like, the key thing, like both Warren Buffett and Bill Gates said, what's the one thing that led to your success, right? Focus. So it's just about focusing. I'm getting better at that, but just think about that one thing that's going really well and then cut the other stuff out or delegate the other stuff out.
Great, makes sense. Very cool. So what is your opinion? I'm not sure if you have any opinion. Have you heard of the SourceWave software and academy? Yeah,
so SourceWave, I think this person's talking about Alex Becker. I watch his YouTube videos because I think they're hilarious. I do not have an opinion on his courses, but I think he's a hustler, and I think everybody should check out his videos on YouTube. Alex Becker.
All right, I'll check it out, definitely. Okay, let's see what we got next. Okay, what email list, we answered that. If you guys, by the way, have more questions for Eric, there's a bunch of questions, but if you find an interesting question, go ahead and click upvote. I want to make sure that we address it. I actually found one with 7 votes. The rise of bots.
I knew that was coming.
What's your take on the rise of bots, namely Facebook Messenger bots and others? I know it's early. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Warner from Mixergy, somebody mentioned him earlier. He's up in SF right now, right? And I subscribe to one of his bots, and his bot is really well thought out. He'll send you like a relevant GIF. He'll ask you questions like, can I show you something else? Oh, I just did something really cool with bots. Can I show you it? Boom, right? And then he'll show you like a case study. It's like, oh, if you want to learn more about it? Boom, yes, right? So it takes you through a conversation. And I definitely recommend checking it out. If you just Google like Mixergy bot, he does it really well. I think we're really early days right now, and it's funny that you mentioned this. Whoever mentioned the question, I think it's a good point because I actually emailed Andrew the other day. I was like, "Hey, you have a service that sets up bots, right? What if I just pay you to do it? Because like I'm strapped for time right now, but I do want to set that up because to be able to retarget people that have visited, let's say, our services page for PPC and have a bot for that powerful, right? Or further down the funnel or on our email list. There's so many different ways or things you can do with it, and the open rates are like 80% plus.
And what is Andrew using it for specifically? I
think he's using it to try to get people to sign up for his bot service. So it worked well on me. Like I actually want to buy it now.
Oh, so he actually released a product.
I think it's more of a service.
Oh, service. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then also Digital Marketer. If you go to digitalmarketer.com, they talk a lot about bots. Check out their podcast, Perpetual Traffic.
Very cool. All right, everyone, we'll go ahead and if any, maybe we can add it to the chat as well. Okay, Eric, you got Mixergy there. Perfect. So equipment, do you have, I guess this is the question that you hear a lot, but let's go ahead and address it too. Do you have any suggestions on equipment? How concerned should we be with getting the right gear for podcasting?
Yeah, so right here, I have a Blue Yeti mic. I do recommend putting in earbuds too. I probably, you probably want to get like AirPods or something. I probably should have put them in. But there's also another one. I use a HER 2000, I think. That's when I record with Neil when we're both together. That one's pretty good for travel. And then I think the sound quality is the biggest thing. Beyond that, I mean, everything else is like a nice to have. Like we use QuickTime to record sometimes. We use ScreenFlow to record sometimes. So yeah, mic first.
And you guys not using, not doing video, right? As a supplementary.
No video, but we probably will start doing it soon just because like I started vlogging more. So if you check out my YouTube channel, I think it's Build Growth Everywhere or Growth Everywhere. Neil actually hired someone to shoot his videos. He's doing like 2-minute segments. And then I'm actually starting to shoot like a marketing reality series where I go into companies. It's almost like The Profit. We talk about the business, their problems. We give them like a template and then we share that template with people afterwards. So.
Very cool. Speaking of virtual reality, do you think eventually it will find its way to marketing somehow?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, everything, marketers pervert everything, right? So anything that gets attention, I think marketers will pervert. So yeah.
Yeah.
My opinion on GrowthX Academy versus Reforge, I don't have an opinion. I think those are nice. I think if they provide the same results as a General Assembly or like those code schools, then like, yeah. They're great.
Actually, I didn't see that question, but I know both of the academies very well. So I think GrowthX is actually more appropriate if you're just starting out with growth marketing. And Reforge, think of it more of a Stanford or MBA when it comes to growth marketing, usually for established companies. Yeah,
cool.
Both of them are great.
Alex Becker speaks bad about Neil. A lot of people speak bad about Neil. I think it's hilarious.
That's funny. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, you're looking at the chat. That's why I'm looking at the most uploaded questions here.
Just look at the chat.
Cool. So what kind of CTAs have you been using? I'm assuming as a part of the podcast in general. Trying to maybe Akak, maybe you can expand on this question.
I think I know what he's talking about. I think so at the very end, so we have an intro and an outro, right? At the very end, we always have, so our guy he actually works at Lead Pages, Tim Page, and he'll be like, oh yeah, if you liked it, well, he has a really great radio voice. If you really enjoyed it, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. So that call to action is always in there. And then also at the very end, I always put in kind of the software giveaway that we have. And somebody mentioned earlier, like not everybody has the audience for that. I never had an audience when I built up Growth Everywhere, and that led to like market school. So it just takes time. I think anybody can do this. I just think most people, taking a page from Gary Vee, most people aren't patient enough.
Makes sense. Cool. All right, so the slide deck, okay. This is content-related questions. Let's see what else. If you guys have specifically content-related questions to Eric, those are the ones that would get top priority. Also marketing-related ones. We want to make sure we will be mindful of his time. When are you leaving to San Francisco, by the way?
Well, I'm probably going to leave at 2 for the airport. Yeah, so I'm good. I have 2 more hours, guys. Let's do Q&A for 2 more hours.
Okay. By the way, you're welcome to stick around at the chat. because we'll have a short break. So if you guys want to hang out with Eric here, this is the place to be. But let's see, not so much search engine optimization related, but you guys seem very productive. What is the biggest life hack you would like to suggest for productivity?
Am I drinking bottled water? Yes, I'm drinking bottled water. Yeah, so, okay, here. Let me see if I can show this. So I have this app right here. It's called Way of Life. You can't really see it, but you can see all my habits are in there. I haven't recorded this week, but just being able to track all your habits every single day is super important. I think if I had to pick one hack, what would my one hack be?
But we would love to hear about the app. Tracking habits.
Yeah, so I'll just read some of the habits on here because I think people are interested in it. Yeah, I mean, Way of Life is what the app is called. But yeah, the 5-minute journal, like filling that out every single day has had a really big impact on my life in the last, I think I've been doing it for 2 to 3 years or so, because it starts your day off the right way, right? It starts it off positive and it ends it on a positive note. And like, it seems, you know, I say this, right? It seems very like rah, woo, woo kind of stuff, but it does help because when science has shown that when you're grateful, you actually can't really be like that angry at anything. So when you're grateful about things, it helps a lot. So I just think about like every single day, like it's the fact that I get to work on what I want to work on that's my definition of success, right? But yeah, without going into my Tony Robbins kind of pitch, it's basically, you know, being grateful and kind of following this app and filling out the 5-minute journal.
Gotcha. And then maybe, okay, if nothing comes up, maybe couple of life hacks or productivity hacks that you have personally to get more done with less.
Yeah. Okay. So here's one. So when I book calls, they're only for 15 minutes or so. So when I use my Schedule Once link, that's being done that way. And I also use an app called Text Expander. So there's a lot of phrases that I repeat over and over. So using Text Expander, I'll just break them all out. When I do like a podcast, for example, it's the same questions that show up, so I don't have to keep typing it over and over. That saves me a lot of time. And then also, what else do I use? I use Alfred. So if you use Mac, Alfred will allow me. It's basically I can search apps really quickly. I can do math really quickly. So it just allows me to move a lot faster. And then my other hack for you would be to type really fast. Just go to typingtest.com, test yourself. For me, like one of the things we look at when we hire people, if you're not over 60 words per minute, we can't hire you because you type a lot doing work. If you're slow, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I was looking for an app, speech to text app that would actually have with a really good voice recognition. Because I'm not very fast typer, but I like to say everything out loud.
Yeah, whatever works.
I haven't found one. Do you know anything like that?
I think Evernote's actually getting better at that. So I don't do a lot of dictation, but maybe Evernote might be a solution. So.
Gotcha. I gotta look into this. Okay, great. So let's see here. Let's take a couple of more questions from the audience. Eric, okay, there's so many.
Also, I mean, probably the biggest thing too is as a leader of the company, you have to make sure that you're delegating as much as possible. And so it's really easy to say, right? But a lot of us, we like to control everything. So for example, finance, when people ping me about finance, I move it over to somebody else, right? Or people like operations, for example, somebody else is handling that, right? I think every quarter you need to be figured out what things can you be taking off your plate? What are things you shouldn't be doing? So you make an Excel sheet, right? Here's the $10 task that you're doing. Here's the $100 task, $1,000 task, $10,000 tasks per hour, right? And if you're doing things such as scheduling or whatever, or you're doing things like reporting that you shouldn't be doing for clients, or you're doing client work when you're running a company, you're making a mistake there because that's not the best use of your time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And the only tasks that I'm doing that I really enjoy that would fall under this category. So I'm kind of considering those are the tasks that I'm doing on my own time.
Here's a story, man. I mean, when I first joined Entrepreneurs Organization, which you and I have talked about, there's one guy that joined with me at the same time, and his business was doing $3 million a year. And I just saw him a couple of weeks ago, and so I was like, "How are things going, man?" He's like, "Yeah, we do $22 million a year now." I was like, "Hold on." We went from 3 million to 22 million in like a year, in like 3 years. I was like, "What's the secret?" And he's like, "Dude, you just like hire really good people that like know what they're doing, and you let them, you just get out of their way and you let them go. And that's the ultimate job. You know, when you're the CEO of a company, when you go from 0 to 1 million, it's all like, you know, you're figuring out the product, you know, product market fit and all that. But when you go to 1 to 10 million, it's all about, you know, processes, procedures. And when you go to 10 million to 100 million, it's all about the executive team, like, you know, having great people that can run everything, and you just stay out of their way.
Wow, no, this is great, priceless advice for sure. And I'm actually looking at the organization that you mentioned. Is it which organization is that?
So I'll drop it in chat. So it's Entrepreneurs Organization.
Great. And let's see, here's the one, actually interesting question, another one from Diana. What are the podcasting trends we should be paying attention in 2017, if something comes to mind from you doing podcasts for many years already?
Podcasting trends, I would say like figuring out how to be more creative, like a Russell Brunson, or like doing these giveaways, right? The concept of reaching out to people and doing these giveaways didn't come to me. So I think thinking outside of the box in terms of how you can grow faster, because it is going to get more, a lot more kind of saturated. I would also say you see people on Instagram or YouTube collaborating all the time. How do you collaborate with other big podcasts out there? How do you help them out? I think I haven't seen a lot of that, and I think that would actually be pretty helpful.
Great. Excellent. Let's see here. Where else we got? If traffic on the website is good but no conversion, how to crack it? Because this is a very general question, and we should have conversion optimization summit at some point.
Yes.
Any tips?
I mean, the main thing when you look at marketing is really just a complement to the product, right? If your offer is not that good, if you don't have a good lead magnet, that's ultimately on you, right? So I think you need to take a step back and say, audit like what's working, what isn't working. Oftentimes it starts with the offer first. Your lead magnet probably just sucks. That's basically what it is. So often, I mean, you know, we've gone from crappy lead magnet to like, you know, more relevant lead magnet. The crappy one converted about 2% or so, but when we put in the new one, it converted at 8%, right? So making small tweaks like that. And oftentimes with these tests, it's, you know, most of them are going to fail, but oftentimes the ones that really work, like a working product, like the iPhone, for example, it's just a few tweaks in the right direction, and it's a beautiful product, right? Versus like something that failed. So you just have to keep tweaking over time, and you have to be willing to you just have an open mind.
Great. All right. So let's see who else has a good question. Okay, so some people are confused by the word hacking. What is your opinion on growth hacking? Just to throw out there.
So I first heard that term when I was 25. Holy crap! So that's 2012, and I think it's been overdone now. At the time, it was kind of a popular term. Like it's like, you know, the cool people were using it, right? Like who came up with it? Sean Ellis and Heaton Shaw, right? So, you know, cool people, right? And then it started to kind of get overdone, I think, a bit. But to me, it's still the same thing. Like people try to argue that it's different from marketing. To me, marketing is becoming more digital. So marketing is growth hacking, in my opinion. I think it's just another word. And the people that I see, interestingly enough, the people that I see talking about growth hacking the most aren't the best marketers. These are the people that are trying to like abuse and kind of hack systems. Like people I see on Instagram where they'll repost other people's content over and over, and they'll just spam, and they'll join different Facebook groups. It reminds me of like old school black hat SEO. So that to me is kind of how these up and coming people are thinking about growth hacking. It's just like, you know, these little tricks, right? But to me, growth hacking is good marketing.
Yeah, and I think Andrew Chen, he wrote an article, and he had a keynote on growth hacking is all about sustainable growth, not a bag of tricks.
Yep.
And this is something that Sean Ellis also, who coined the term, advocates. And one of the things that I found interesting, that right now larger companies are actually looking into growth as being as combining the efforts of sales, engineering teams, and trying to incorporate that approach. So I would like to see where this trend will go in general. And that's something that we would like to do at the Growth Marketing Conference, bring together both technical marketers, sales engineers, as well as specialists, and that have them all focused on growth. Anyway, let's see. Who else has a really good question before we wrap up this session with Eric? I have one question, but I want to see if we get something from the audience. There's a ton of them. Eric, any questions that you particularly want to answer here?
Let's see.
There's so many. I want to make sure that we'll choose one that you like and the audience will get the most.
If I were a hot dog, would I eat myself? No, because I smell. Thanks, Harold. Let's see. If you wouldn't have done the podcast, which other method would you have used to drive SEO? Okay, so interestingly enough, when I first joined SEO, our site was getting about 4,000 visits a month. Now we're at about 59,000, which is decent for a marketing blog because it's so competitive. But it's just content, and then we did a lot of guest posting, and it just because we stuck with it, that's how we went from 4 to 59K or so. And now because Google, our domain authority has gone up, when we write new content, it tends to rank well because we're seen as a marketing site. So just consistency on that part. Just everything that you probably heard on this summit applies that. So nothing new here.
Cool. And then one of the things you just mentioned, something that you just closed the client like 45 minutes ago, and recently you signed up Uber. What is something that is really working for you right now when it comes to marketing, when it comes to attracting new clients?
Yeah, I think for me, because my background is not in sales, but I know marketing pretty well. I have a conversation with them. So when it comes to sales, the one tip I give is you should be listening more than talking. A lot of people talk way more. Like I just interviewed somebody the other day. We did a role playing, and he talked the whole time. He just kept talking, didn't ask me any questions at all. Like when you and I have a conversation with Zil, we're asking questions to each other because we're curious. And I've heard from other people before where you just let someone talk for the most time, and they come out of the conversation saying that was the most interesting conversation I've had ever, because they were just talking the whole time. Right? So you let people talk more, you learn more about what they want and what their goals are and what makes them tick. And you consult afterwards, and it becomes more like a relationship.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but it was a great session. Appreciate the Q&A, appreciate the presentation. Thank you guys, all of you, for joining. If you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to Eric. Eric, which email would you like to use for it?
Yeah, it's eric@singlegrain.com.
Yeah, if some of you haven't subscribed for whatever reason to Marketing School and Growth Everywhere, just go ahead and do it now and listen to a few episodes and make sure you leave some good reviews. And we will see you at the next session. We actually will take a short break. We have a bonus session prepared for you. You can watch it right now or anytime afterward, after our live sessions. But next up live, we will have Jason talking about how to scale guest posting to high authority website. Coming up at 12:30 in about 30 minutes, and we'll see you guys there. Eric, thanks again for joining. We'll see you soon, man.
Take care, everyone. Bye.